tune here. What's up, Nick Granville? What's up, everyone? Whoever's tuning in, jumping on here. We have number 6 of this live stream, which has been like, just what? Like, I can't believe it's been 6 weeks of live streams, which has been so cool. It doesn't feel like that I just started this not too long ago, and I'm sure I'm going to be saying this when I get to like number 10 or something. But if you're just jumping on, welcome. This is a nice hour and a bit of just bass here with me, bass with Benjamin. That's what that's part of what I do here. And I thought, since you've been seeing my upright bass standing in the corner, being all sad, well, hopefully not too sad, I thought, it might be nice to actually play a bit of upright bass and kind of obviously feature it in some of these live streams. And because not only am I an electric player, but I do play a lot of upright too, and I've done a lot of gigs on the upright bass, especially this upright right here. This is Bertha. This is my beloved upright that I've had for almost 10 years now, which is really cool. I've got this, this was my first good upright bass. And when I say good, I mean my previous one was decent, but it was definitely more of a kind of student plywood bass, but it did the job. I was able to play and develop my thing on it. But it did get to the point where it was becoming difficult to play and not producing the sound or my concept of what I was trying to do, because I had been growing as a musician. So I found this wonderful instrument at a local bass shop in Pasadena called Fantastic Musical Instruments. If you're looking for an upright bass, I recommend going over there. It's a mom and pop, family run, small business. Tom Kerr is the owner, and he's trained his daughters to also be luthiers who are just do such incredible work, setups, repairs, restorations. They take a lot of great care. Really good people. So if you're looking for an upright bass or you need some work done on your upright bass, check out Fantastic Musical Instruments. They even ship nationally and also internationally as well. So, but anyway, I got this bass over there, and he had actually the first bass that I got that I used throughout college. I got that bass from there, and I was able to do like a trade in and acquire this bass because it's when I started playing it, I just had a connection to it. Just had a nice, beautiful punch, nice singing quality, and I knew that playing this on gigs and recording sessions, it would do exactly what I needed to do. It's definitely well balanced, a nice growl in the low end. It's not an instrument where you have to really yank the strings to get a good sound out of it. You don't have to put a lot of effort into playing this instrument. And this one, for those who are interested, this is called a Shen SB88. So it's not a bass that will really break the bank necessarily. It's actually a really good kind of mid-range affordable instrument for what it is. But just like any instrument, I mean, you definitely have to play it because every version of the same model is going to sound and play different. And so there were actually a few other of the same models that he had, and when I played this one, I was like, there's something really special about this. So, and that goes for any instrument out there. But this instrument has been all over Los Angeles, many recording sessions, gigs, and it's a very versatile, just solid instrument. And there's been a number of great bass players who have played it as well, that I've been lucky enough to see and bless this instrument. John Patitucci was one of them. He sat in on a gig that I was playing at the old Blue Whale, and he sounded like himself on this instrument. He sounded amazing. I do have some video footage of that I took when that happened. There was one time I was at Stanley Clark's house, and I took my upright with me, and he spent over an hour just playing on it. He's a really, obviously, everyone knows him as an upright and electric bass guy, but upright bass is really his thing. Like, he's been playing that instrument the longest, and he just absolutely loves upright bass players, the instruments, different instruments. So he's always wanting to check out your bass, and especially he has some incredible instruments that he owns one of Charles Mingus's basses, as well as he has just some beautiful upright basses, like vintage stuff, custom ones as well. But he really enjoyed playing my 2015 Shen bass here. He really enjoyed it. It was also interesting too. A lot of, if you don't know, a lot of people know Stanley as, having a lower action on his upright bass, which is why he, plays all these very beautiful, intricate, and just amazing, like virtuosic kind of lines. And to play, I guess, like Chick Corea's music back in the day and all that, and even his own, you kind of have to have an action to be able to like do that kind of thing. But I have a pretty high action on my upright bass, and I always have, because that's the sound I'm kind of going for. That's where this bass sounds really good. It's what I'm used to. And even with the higher action, he was able to do his thing no problem. Like, even like the flamenco stuff that he gets into, like the real like chordal upper register stuff, it was no problem. And I even asked him, I was like, I'm like, don't you usually have low action? He said, sometimes I'll have the action actually here. Depends what kind of gig I'm playing. If I'm playing more of a acoustic jazz thing, then I'll have it there, and because that's the sound. But he says if I'm playing like my fusion stuff, I'll put it lower. For bowing, I'll have some space on it, and it makes sense. This is someone who knows the instrument very, very well, to where he could just pick up any bass and it would just be him. Just like how it was with John Patitucci when he played this bass. So really cool. If you're joining on, got any questions about bass playing, the basses I use, anything, techniques, anything to do with music and bass playing, please pop it down in the chat. This is where you can really nerd out, because I love to nerd out about bass playing. If you've been seeing some of these live streams that I've been doing, I absolutely go in, and that's the point here, so please pop it down in the chat. Always great to connect with fellow musicians, like-minded musicians on here. We have we got something down here by Santo Joseph. Hello, Ben. Hey, how you doing? Does learning upright changes electric bass playing? I would love to learn it. I would. This is the thing. Does it change your electric bass playing? I would. This is my opinion and my personal maybe experience. I would say not so much. The reason is because I treat the upright bass and the electric bass as two different instruments, right? They have their own traditions, their own techniques, obviously. Physically, it's obviously very different. The thing that is common, obviously, is that they're both bass instruments, so they're still going to be doing the bass role in a band, right? And even can do the lead stuff as well, like playing melodies. You can do that on here, obviously, just like you do on the electric bass. And there's been many virtuosos who have demonstrated that over the years. So not so much. I would say the thing that probably changes is probably maybe your setup on the electric bass, is how you have your action, or just your attack. For me, I've tried to have low action. I think I talked about this last week. I tried to have low action on my electric bass, but it hasn't always been the case of at the end of the day, I always put it back up to like a medium. That's where, and maybe I also do it to kind of remind myself of like, okay, yeah, this is where it feels the best, where I think it sounds the best too. So there's probably that it would change that. But I think, learning upright and playing upright as well as playing electric bass and becoming proficient on both benefits you as a bass player as a whole, right? Obviously, when you can demonstrate and show that you can play both instruments proficiently, that's more work right there. Especially if you're playing gigs where, okay, you have to double on both instruments. That kind of word gets around in a music scene, like, oh yeah, you should hire such and such because they can double on both. They have a great sound, great feel, know a ton of tunes, know how to fill in. That's the thing that I always encourage for bass players, whether they play only upright or only electric. Hey, why not play both? It's a bass instrument, and if you want to be a working musician, and also you just want to expand your musical horizon, why not learn both? Why not become both? So I definitely encourage you, Santo, to learn the upright bass. And definitely, obviously, with YouTube and recordings and all that, there's so many great stuff that you can check out. But I definitely, wherever you're based in the world, I would definitely recommend going to, if you can, going to gigs where there's a great upright bass player, and just see it done in person. Again, you can also obviously see this on videos, YouTube. That's what I did most of my growing up. Obviously, watching a lot of Stanley Clarke videos, listening to recordings, Patitucci, Christian McBride. Because when I was learning, there was no YouTube. There was barely any of these DVDs. So it was just listening to recordings and also learning that way. Finding a good teacher as well who knew good technique, who could get a good sound and just show you some things, and then you can go from there. And you don't need to get a huge, super expensive instrument as well. It can be, there's a lot of places where they do instrument rentals. So if you wanted to rent an instrument, and I did that for a while when I was much younger. I just rented an instrument, as long as it's set up good, great setup, it feels good, it's not hard to play, then that will get you in the right space and right environment to get you on the upright bass. So I hope that's helpful to you. Lauren Cohen, who's also a bassist, saying, sounds great. Thank you so much, Lauren. Is that a plywood bass? No, this is not a plywood bass. It's actually made out of willow, which I believe is a softer type of wood. My previous bass was definitely a plywood bass. But this bass is, I know it's like I think it's like a laminate or something. I can't remember. I'll have to have a look exactly, but it's definitely a more darker sounding instrument, which I'm really into. It's definitely got a nice deep kind of sound, and I do use more darker strings as well, but it's definitely got a nice punch to it. So yeah, it's just there's something about this bass that it just has some really good DNA in there. And speaking of strings, these strings in particular are actually pretty old. The D and the G string are probably 12 years old. They are Ava Parazzis. I don't think they're the Vike kind of thing. They're just the regular kind. I mean, they're even from my last bass. But the E and the A strings are even older. They're like almost 20 years old. They are Diodario Helicore hybrids. and these were from a set that I bought back when I was a freshman in college, back at Cal Arts. But they just sound so good, even for the age that they're at. It's got some beautiful sustain, nice ringing quality to it. So that's the thing with upright bass strings, is that they can last quite a long time. And I've used these strings like a lot. So yeah, just really nice. But yeah, so this is Bertha, like I said, my beautiful upright bass. She's been on a lot of gigs with me, and so I've recorded quite a lot of albums. She's even had a television little cameo appearance as well. If you've ever seen the morning show on I think it's Apple TV, there's an episode there where there's a scene where I'm playing with a band, and we're playing that Radiohead tune, Creep. We're doing like a, kind of little, that kind of thing, which was a lot of fun. It was really cool because also in that scene, and I was on set with people like, it was Reese Witherspoon and Billy Crudup. So that was like crazy, like some real like A-list actors right there. So that was a lot of fun. Who else we got? We got Mario. Did you get to study with Charlie? Yes. So you're talking about Charlie Hayden. Absolutely. I studied with Charlie back at Cal Arts. I was one of his last students. This was in the, his final years, because towards the end, unfortunately, he was pretty ill, so he wasn't able to do a lot of teaching. But I did get to hang out with him and spend some good time with him, and he actually got me into playing gut strings for the G and D strings, which at some points, I might get back into it actually. But yeah, my time with Charlie was really cool. He was one of those cats where he doesn't teach you like, okay, so this is how you would play like a Lydian dominant like scale. It's not like that. The lessons are like you play for him, and then he'll give you feedback. So a lot of times I would take a guitar player or a piano player with me into the lesson, and I would just play. He would want to hear you play, and then he'd give you feedback, and then he would jump up on the bass and do some playing as well. Or we might just like do some listening. Like he would bring in a whole bag of like recordings, super like rare bootleg stuff that's not released, like recordings. So it'll be like the board tapes from a trio gig that he did with Pat Metheny and Billy Higgins, and we're just listening, and or it'd be something with him and like Jan Garbarek. Like it was amazing. It was a huge, definitely different. It was more of a spirituality of playing music, playing the bass, that kind of thing. And it would be as simple as like if you weren't happening that day, be like, yeah, man, you just need to go and practice some more, man. Like it was that kind of thing. It was really great. And like I said, I had my old plywood bass back then, and For some reason, he loved playing that bass, which was really cool. Um, because he was very picky about basses. Even like some of the students had really nice like carved wood basses and all that, and then there would be something on it that he wouldn't like. But for some reason, he didn't say anything about my cheap plywood bass. And this is the thing, on that bass, he would sound like himself. It would sound like these Charlie Hayden Quartet West or like recordings. It was the sound. It was there on that bass. Um, yeah, no, it was such a great time. I mean, the fun. I'll tell you one funny story. There was one time I came into the class, and he's like, Ben, well, you got your bass with you? And I was like, yeah, here you go, Charlie. I took it out of the case, and the thing was dirty. It was like, I mean, there was like on the fingerboard, like it was like just filthy, dusty. There was like rosin everywhere, and he was just like, man. He's like, man, how can you play this thing? This thing is dirty. And he told me, all right, go get a whole bunch of paper towels. All right, gets a and kind of just lightly dampen them. And he spent a good 30 minutes. He had a microfiber cloth like in his bag or something, and he spent a good 30 minutes cleaning my bass. I mean, that thing looked shiny. That thing looked like a whole different instrument, and it even sounded better. I was like, wow, I was getting a master class on like how to take care of your bass. And that's the thing, it's like you really do. So the thing that I do is, after playing and even before playing, get the cloth and just give it a nice wipe, on the strings, on the top, on the sides and all that. Just kind of leave it, looking good. So thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. Really good. I'm gonna play the electric, because since I've been playing a little upright, that kind of warms me up for the electric. So just give me a minute, or 30 seconds. I gotta rearrange the microphone as well. I have another. You can't see it, but I have another microphone down here, where that usually is on the amp cabinet, but I was using it for the upright bass. So thank you, Bertha. I'm gonna put Bertha back in her corner, and then I think I might pick up Eveline, who's my BTB 6-string. And if you're just joining on here, welcome. If you have any questions or anything about bass playing, pop it down in the chat. As you can see, some people already have. And, let's nerd out. Let's talk about bass. Let's talk about music. I'm going to turn down the gain here for that microphone, because when I put the amp on, it's going to clip. All right. Get it in the sweet spot for the amp, and we can adjust this a little. All right. Grab my chair. All right. It's always funny, even on gigs, when after playing upright on gigs, or playing the tunes that have upright and then having to change to electric bass, it just feels like butter, even if I do have a higher action on the electric. Because at the end of the day, I said last week, nothing's going to be higher than the upright bass action. DI signal. All right. And I might bring the camera a bit lower so y'all can see a bit more. There we go. That should be a good signal right there. Now let's tune up a bit. So, as I've said in the past, it's really important to always tune up. For a number of reasons, obviously, if you're going to be playing music, you want to be in tune. I'm going to mute this while I do this. Obviously, you want to be in tune when playing music. But also, I feel that the instrument responds better when all the strings are at its correct pitch. That's just my opinion. I don't know any scientific fact about it, but I just feel that when I've played an instrument that is in tune and balanced, it just sounds better. And of course, in my case, playing chords, yeah, it has to be in tune. It's gonna sound terrible. Saying I just jumped on YouTube to check out some hexatonic stuff. I'm not gonna say keep a little PG here. Hexatonic stuff before my gig, and saw you live streaming. Like to hear your concepts. Yeah, you know, I do utilize some hexatonic things as well. Since you know, if you jumped on here. Like say if I was, you know, playing over like a Lydian chord. I'll kind of approach it like that. I just, you know, there's a lot of like melodic content obviously in anything, but definitely because it just lays so well with the bass. And then I also like to utilize, you know, fourths as well. Fourths are very popular amongst bassists, but it's just such a really cool sound. I was talking to one of my students yesterday in his lesson about fourths. Um, Definitely very Coltrane-esque, but just because the bass is tuned in fourths, say if I'm still playing, A major 7. And I like to use fourths to also side slip as well. And so combining that with hexatonic, you get some pretty cool stuff, And it's really cool if you're like, you can use it, for modulating. That's some of the stuff that I like to use, just when playing bass, improvising, and all that. And might I say, if again, if you're on here and you like you like some of the concepts or just what I do, or you've been checking out my live streams or videos, if you want something a little more personal, I have a one-on-one bass coaching and mentoring program. So it could be where like, hey, I want to become a better soloist, or I want to just improve on playing chords, or how do I become a top, core bass player. This is something one-on-one where I can help you with that, push you in the right direction. So whatever your goals are to do with bass playing, that's what my whole program is about. And I have different length durations of a program. So whether it's a year-long program where we spend the year just focusing on this thing that you are trying to achieve as a bassist and a musician, or it could be as short as like 3 weeks where like, hey, I have this performance coming up and I just want some guidance and some help, in preparation for that, whether it's an audition for something or a performance, anything like that. I have some students who study with me in this program, all for different reasons, which is really cool. And this is a chance for me to get to know your bass playing and you as a musician very well. So if that's something that interests you, you can reach out to me at basswithbenjamin.com, or you can just send me a DM and we can talk more about that. Who else have we got here? Steve Weingart. Yo, getting here late. Man, where were you, man? I've been waiting around, How you doing, bro? And you know what? Speaking of Steve Weingart, I'm going to play a Steve Weingart tune. That's right. He's probably going, what? Don't worry, Steve. It's not one of your tunes I've been recording for you. All right, I'm not giving that away, so you don't have to worry about that. Which has been cool. Like I say, I've been recording some tracks for Steve. He has an exciting album that he's, or just a bunch of tunes that he's been putting together. Exciting music, exciting musicians. It's just all very exciting. So it's really cool. But I'm going to play a tune here that Steve wrote. And this is actually from a performance that we did at the Hollywood Drum Show like a few years back. And this was the very first time that I got to play with Dave Weckl, thanks to Steve, and apparently also John Patitucci as well. But for me, this was one of those bucket list gigs, to play with these two cats, Steve and Dave, together, because I had. So as some of you have probably also seen, there's that Drummers Collective DVD from like 2002 where there's the Dave Weckl band, with Steve and Tom Kennedy, and Gary. Oh my God, I'm spacing on his last name. The saxophone player, Gary. I'll help me out, Steve. And they're playing some crazy stuff, and they play this crazy version of The Chicken, of course. That's how I got to know Steve Weingart, was through that. And then years later, we started playing gigs together, which was so cool. And then Gary Meek, thank you, Steve. And then he recommended me for Dave's gig, which was, again, like I said, a bucket list item for me to play with these two, just badass dudes. I also learned that John Patitucci had a say in it as well, because Dave had asked, who are some young bass players coming up, and John threw my name in the pot. So thank you, John, and thank you, Steve. So I'm going to play a tune here that Steve wrote called The Village. And this is one of my favorite tunes to play that Steve's written. He's got a bunch of other tunes, but I love playing this one because it has just, some really cool kind of metric modulations going on. And, the thing with Steve's music is that there's always fun stuff to do, which I really love. That's why this, new music that he's working on is very exciting. There's always great things to do. So here we go. This is called The Village. Man, I haven't played that in such a long time. It's just so much fun, and because that's the recording from the drum show, so it kind of for a moment just took me back to that performance right there, which was really cool. In my last bit of coffee here. Um, if you've been on here, uh, nice to see you. I've been having a lot of fun here. If you got any questions, please pop it down in the chat. Again, that was a tune by my good buddy, incredible, one of the greatest keyboard players, pianists ever, Steve Weingart. And Renee says, "Yay!" Renee is Steve's lovely wife, who is also an incredible musician, incredible bass player. And so they're just such really good people, really great friends, great musicians. I thought since that was a kind of a gig archives tune, I was going to play another one that I was like, oh, this might be kind of cool. This is from a band that I played in for many years called the Monkestra, which is led by another great pianist, composer, arranger, John Beasley, who was another bucket list musician. When I first moved to Los Angeles, the first ever gig that I went and saw was his band at the Jazz Bakery, and he had just released an album, a tribute album to Herbie Hancock called A Letter to Herbie, because Herbie had just come out with, or a year before, Herbie had come out with letters, the Joni letters, right? His Joni Mitchell tribute album that won the Grammy for Album of the Year. And so, of course, Beasley's album was, for Herbie. And this was one of the most mind-blowing gigs I'd ever seen. It was Jeff Tain Watts on drums, Buster Williams on bass, and Benny Maupin on saxophone. And I'd never seen anything like it before, especially me. I just moved from New Zealand. I was 18 years old. It was just incredible. And I was like, okay, at some point, I want to play with John Beasley. And so I got to, many years later, I met John on when I was playing with Lee Ritenour. John has been playing with Lee for many years, and that's where we first met. Was a gig we were doing in Kuala Lumpur at the jazz festival. Then John was on that, and so we had stayed in touch and played with him on and off. And he asked me, like, "Hey, I've got this project called the Monkestra. Can you do some playing with us?" And when he meant playing, he was like, "We're about to go and record our next album in a week. Can you come and play?" And so that's where that started. And then I just have been all over the world with Monkestra. I've recorded 3 albums and just been such one of the most enjoyable experiences of my career. I learned a lot playing in that band, especially in terms of reading very complex charts. In the Monkestra, it's obviously the music of Thelonious Monk, but it's done John's way, which is, it's a mixture of all kinds of stuff. So I thought it might be cool to play, which is funny because this is not actually a Thelonious Monk tune. This is a Charlie Parker tune, because we eventually started doing other arrangements as well. But this still has a bit of a Monk influence in there too. But this is his version of Donna Lee. And this tune actually won a Grammy for best arrangements of a best arrangement of a cappella tune, or I can't remember the exact category, but it won a Grammy. And on this version, you'll hear the band always featured a lot of the top call like horn players in LA. So a lot of the cats that do a lot of the sessions, for movies and soundtracks and just any of the Hollywood Bowl, like LA Phil kind of gigs. Those were the main members. But in particular, I'll point out that on this version, it's on the drums is Terrion Gully. And we actually joined Monkestra at the same time. So that's where I also got to start, playing with him. And also playing with him was another bucket list musician, because obviously his time with Christian McBride, the Christian McBride band, the whole Live at Tonic album that I just, a lot of us, just wore out, especially when I was in college. That was the kind of thing. But anyway, without any further ado, this is the Monkestra's version of Charlie Parker's Donna Lee. So here we go. Yeah, it's quite a workout, that one. Especially like, oh yeah, when I started the tune, I was like, okay, I totally forgot that I had to play the melody to Donna Lee as well. Um, but that's such a fun arrangement. Monkestra was always a band where, again, that's another band where it has the music. There's always something to do. There's always like some stuff that you gotta look out for. Challenging as well. What I loved about Monkestra, even though it was a big band, a jazz orchestra, it still had the vibe of like a small group kind of thing. Especially when we're playing solos and all that, we could really just stretch and be real loose with it. And even on the ensemble parts as well, there was like some crunchy bits as well, which was all about what Monk's music is. Even when we're not playing Monk's tunes, there was just this real like grease kind of factor, like real funk kind of thing, which I loved. And that was, and I played both electric and upright bass in that band. So there'll be some real straight ahead, swinging stuff, very bassy kind of stuff. And then there would be some like hip hop, or like Afro-Cuban, funk, it was a band, or we'd play some like free kind of thing. So it was definitely a very enjoyable group, and a great group of musicians as well to just travel the world and play a lot of shows with. I think we're almost at the end here, but there is a question here from someone named Rat Soup. How to craft smooth 8-note lines in a jazz solo? Well, yeah, getting them smooth, I mean, no matter what tempo. But if we're talking about jazz specifically, you want to make sure that you do understand how to swing. So if I'm playing, let's just take like an F blues, for example. Something like this tempo. So, understanding how to really kind of push and pull on the 16th notes instead of just trying to go da 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 where it sounds really stiff. Knowing how to like kind of lay back, But I don't have I wish I had my looper set up, then I could play with sometime. But even even that, you don't need to have like a thing to play with. You can just do by yourself. to just have you want to just have a nice kind of light sense of playing to where you can just freely, instead of having to like get caught up in like, okay, trying to get these like very clean notes and lines. You want to be able to just freely play, whether you play behind the beat or play ahead. You want to have that element of imperfections in there, especially when you're like playing the blues as well. And that's the thing. If you learn how to play the blues and really express yourself in that, like really just make your lines just kind of just tell a story. That's really what you want to do. And doing that with a good sense of time and rhythm, then that's how you'll be able to craft some good lines. Obviously, listening is a huge part. You just got to listen to how the greats did it. That's really how I can tell you if you really want to get more into it. So, with that saying, I've kind of gone a little over time here. Usually I try to keep this to an hour and a bit, but sometimes I just go on and on. It's what Charlie Hayden used to do. Lessons are supposed to be in an hour, and 3 hours later, I mean, I didn't care. It was Charlie Hayden. Baby beluga. Sure, the baby belugas are very cute. Yeah, that's it. I want to thank you all for jumping on here. This has been a lot of fun. Just answering some questions, doing some playing here, just talking about bass and music. I've really enjoyed it. This has just been so fun. And again, since this has been the 6th one, I've been doing this every week. Same time, same place. So if you really enjoyed this, you can tune in next week. And while you're here, if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, because that really helps my content get pushed into all the algorithms, and the algorithm becomes more of my friend and wants to show more of my content to lots of wonderful people. So thank you guys so much. This has been a lot of fun, as always. Be safe out there. Have a wonderful rest of the week and weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. All right? Take care. Peace.